Hi, my name is Meghan Gregonis. I'm the American Consul General in Munich. Well, my main responsibility is to protect American citizens. So, of course, I'm here as the representative of my government. We have a range of policies that we are constantly engaging on, and we're always looking for ways to reinforce the bilateral relationship and the transatlantic partnership. But protecting American citizens is the #1 priority. You may not know that we've got about 80,000 American citizens here in Bavaria alone. So that's 45,000 citizens who are here privately, and then the rest are connected to our military presence here in Bavaria. So I would say that that's the #1 role that I have, but then otherwise I'm representing my government, I'm advancing our policy priorities, and I'm looking for ways to bring our people closer together. Yeah, our ambassador, of course, who is in Berlin at the embassy, would be spending a lot more time working on the policy priorities, engaging with his counterparts in Berlin. So I would say that he's got a very public role of engaging. There's a lot of public outreach, but it's really very focused on those policy priorities. I have the luxury and the opportunity here in Munich to be a lot broader in terms of my engagement. So we do a lot of public engagement. I really enjoy engaging with young people, going to schools. We can talk about our priorities, but I also spend a lot of time, for example, promoting trade, encouraging Bavarian companies to be investing in the United States, and then supporting the American companies who are invested here in Bavaria. So I would say that my job is broader maybe than the ambassador, even though the ambassador is responsible for our relationship with all of Germany, and my responsibility is here in Bavaria. Yeah, or a day in the life of the U.S. Consul General here in Munich. There's no typical day. Every day is different and has different challenges, but I generally start off pretty early in the morning where I'm up. Occasionally I'm able to get up early enough to get a workout in, but generally what I'm doing is I'm scanning the local media, and then I'm scanning the U.S. media while I'm having breakfast. And then if I'm in the office, I'm getting ready to go in the office, generally by bicycle. Actually, I like to commute by bike, or if I'm at home, sometimes in the morning I will have a German lesson, because it's very important for us to be engaging our contacts in German. So that is a part of my job. And if I don't have a German lesson, then I'm preparing for the first meeting of the day, which is generally a call with Berlin. And so that is where we are talking about the press of the day and talking about priorities of the day. So that's generally a pretty quick call with Berlin, with not just me, but the other consulates on the line as well. And then generally in the mornings, I do have a press briefing with our own team. So we're talking about what is going on in the Bavarian press that could be of interest to us. And then we also use it as an opportunity to check in on some of the hot topics that we're following. And then on some days are a little more internal, where I'm meeting with the section chiefs, or I'm having other meetings internally, because part of my job is outward facing, where I'm engaging, but a big part of my job is also inward facing, where I am the manager of the consulate. So I need to be in regular contact with the section chiefs and to follow up on the issues that they may have. So for example, we have a consular section that provides support for American citizens, and that could be everything from renewing a passport to registering a birth abroad, or also providing visa services. So we continue to provide some visa services in this time. We're also working on what we call the national interest exception for some travelers who do have to go to the United States. We're able to help facilitate that, provided there is a national interest reason for doing so. Sometimes I'm checking in with the consular section on their issues. So a typical day now, of course, because we have fewer opportunities to get out and engage, but I could be engaging an audience of high schoolers, for example, digitally, to talk about anything related to the United States. Previously, we would do those visits in person. Sometimes I meet with the Youth Advisory Council, which is an initiative that we started since I arrived to engage with younger people. And I've been so impressed at how interested they are in engaging with us and what great ideas they have for how we can really connect to a younger generation and work together on our shared challenges. Yeah, so obviously working with my colleagues in Berlin is a big part of my job as well. So I am generally checking in with them, sometimes multiple times a day by email, and we're coordinating on a number of issues. So that's very important as well. This past week, for example, we've been doing some engagement on China issues. We're very concerned about human rights abuses in China. So we've been talking to the Uyghur community, which is actually headquartered here in Munich. So we've done a couple of Facebook Live sessions with the Uyghur community, and we've also coordinated an article, an op-ed article that is co-authored between our Chargé d'Affaires and the president of the World Uyghur Congress that appeared this week. So a lot of times in a typical day, we are working on these initiatives and pushing them forward. This week we've concentrated engagement on that topic, but for example, at the end of November, we will be concentrating our efforts on engaging on all things America for American Week. So there's a lot of planning going on. So in a typical day, I would be working on those kinds of initiatives too, and working together with the teams who are doing more of the details of that kind of planning. Afternoons are varied. I could have appointments with contacts, and the contacts are broad range, whether it's there are political contacts or business and trade contacts. There could be any number of engagements. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned also the work of our consular section, because generally on a day I'm not engaged in the day-to-day details of what our consular section is doing, but it's an important part of our work and I do oversee it, and that is providing support for the American citizens here in Bavaria, whether it is a passport renewal or reporting a birth abroad of a U.S. citizen, or supporting the business community through what we call national interest exceptions, because some people do need to be traveling to the United States. We still do have a visa section doing visa work and supporting that kind of travel. So that is something that would also feature in a typical day for me. At the end of the day, if I have had the chance to work out earlier, then I'm able to go home and see my husband and eat and relax a little bit before the whole cycle starts again. I'm generally attached to my phone 24/7, so I'm constantly checking, and that is, I think, just part of a diplomat's typical day now that we are always connected to our devices. But consuming the news is certainly a big part of my day, and that is happening throughout the day. And then I get to sleep, and then the whole day starts again the following day. So they're long days, they're busy days, very important days, but I have a lot of passion for what I do, and I'm very committed, so it doesn't really feel like it's tough work. Yeah, the Innovationsbrücke, this is my favorite concept that I've developed while I've been here in Munich. So everyone has heard of the Atlantikbrücke. I thought that the Atlantikbrücke needed a little bit of innovation, a little bit of renewal. And so the Innovationsbrücke is a concept for something that already exists, actually. I've mentioned the number of businesses, American businesses that are here. So we've got about 700, we think, American businesses operating here in Bavaria. And it includes everyone from Google and IBM and Microsoft to the big tech companies, to a lot of smaller companies. Even one of my favorite bicycle companies, SRAM, American Components, they are located in Schweinfurt, for example. So we've got a broad range of American companies here. The Innovationsbrücke is an idea where American companies and Bavarian and German companies are working together to advance innovation. A lot of these tech companies are working with local partners to advance all kinds of initiatives. There are a number of German companies that have invested heavily in the United States, a number of Bavarian companies, Infineon, BMW, Siemens, etc. They're all doing research in the United States. So there's research going on and a ton of innovation going on between businesses here in Bavaria and counterparts in the United States, and that is the Innovationsbrücke. I think we need to be supporting this bridge. I think that we need to be reinforcing it, really providing it with opportunities to grow. So we've looked for ways to support. We've looked for ways to bring the smaller companies together. We've looked to support the smaller Bavarian startup companies, making sure that they have an opportunity to get a toehold and partners in the United States, and there are a couple of avenues for doing that. There's been a lot of success, for example, on the life sciences front. Aerospace is a big opportunity. Of course, the automobile industry as well. Lots of research and development going on connected to that sector. And there's also a really great success story that came out of TUM, Flixbus, which is now super popular in the United States. So this was an innovation that came out of the university that now is alive and well and growing in the United States. So we look forward to more of those stories in the future that can help support this concept of an Innovationsbrücke between Bavaria and the United States. Yeah, so the theme over my priorities is really engaging a younger generation, because I think that the younger generation is further removed from that post-World War II history where the friendship really started to develop between Bavaria and the United States. So I focus on three areas. One is really engaging youth, and that is through the Youth Advisory Council that we started. It's a very active initiative that brings us together with young people from all over Bavaria, and so it's a great opportunity to have a very frank and honest conversation and to talk about a number of topics that are interests of ours in the United States, but maybe less known here in Bavaria. For example, we've spoken about the China and the Uyghur and the Uyghur community with our Youth Advisory Council, and we've talked about a number of other topics too. We had one of the survivors of the Iran hostage crisis in Tehran from 1979. We had one of those survivors talk to our Youth Advisory Council. We've also talked about topics like anti-Semitism, which is very current here in Germany and around the world. So we've had really important conversations, and that's been a great way to develop relationships with really the younger generation, who in the future will be leaders here in Bavaria and in Germany. We've also focused on high school exchange opportunities. Unfortunately, with COVID, we don't have very many of these exchange programs going on, but we do want to make sure that we are supporting the structure for supporting these exchange opportunities. It's so important that young people have an opportunity to start these important friendships and conversations at the high school age, when people are starting to ask questions and really starting to need to have more information. It's really a great opportunity when people from different countries get together and they're able to compare and contrast and ask questions about the world. It's an important time, I think, in young people's lives, and if I can help foster more of those connections at that age, I would love to do so. So we had a plan in place. Unfortunately, COVID has delayed our plan, but we remain committed to the initiative, and we'll keep at it. I would say that the U.S.-Bavaria and the U.S.-Germany relationship has an incredibly strong foundation, and I believe that this relationship gets stronger by the day. And the reason that it gets stronger by the day is because we have so many connections across so many fields. So to give you an example, the people-to-people part of the relationship is particularly strong. 5,000 exchange students go to the United States from Germany every year, and about 5,000 American students come here to Germany to study or to engage in exchange programs in a number of ways. And these are the relationships that build and develop over years, and that is what really adds to the strength of the relationship. There are other factors that I think are incredibly important for this relationship and this real partnership and friendship, and that is that we share certain values: democracy, fundamental freedoms. These are not values that we share with every country in the world. So it's very important that we work off of this base of common values to advance our shared objectives. We have common challenges. We need to be working together to advance those, to counter those challenges. So we really do have a lot of work to be doing. We, of course, believe very strongly in a strong NATO. The security alliance is a very strong part of the relationship too. So while the relationship, I think, has a very strong foundation, there is a lot more that we can do. There's a lot of potential, and we need both sides working even harder to meet the full potential of this relationship. Yeah, Bavaria is a very, very special place for us. And it starts actually with the first German immigrant to the United States. So the first German immigrant was Franz Daniel Pastorius. He came from Markt Sommerhausen, part of present-day Bavaria, actually. So he went to the United States, started the first German settlement in the United States in the 1600s, which, by the way, was in my hometown of Philadelphia. That settlement was called Germantown, and it is now a neighborhood in Philadelphia. And my mother actually lives in that neighborhood, so I have a personal connection there. But the German community in the United States grew. Today, there are about 40 to 60 million Americans who say that they have German heritage, and that's more than any other country. So there's an important relationship there. But in terms of Bavaria, when a typical American thinks of Germany, they actually think of Bavaria. They think of Lederhosen, they think of dirndls, they think of the typical Bavarian countryside, they think of Oktoberfest, etc. So that's always the image. And I think that what really helped reinforce that image was the post-war period. So of course the Americans were the occupying power here in Bavaria starting in 1945. I've heard a number of Bavarian politicians say how they believe that it was so lucky that they got the Americans, because it was an opportunity to develop this relationship, partnership, and now very close friendship. So we have the relationship that goes back to 1945, but it continues until today. So today we have the largest concentration of U.S. Army soldiers in all of Europe right here in Bavaria, and that's 15,000. And when I think about the hundreds of thousands of American soldiers who have served in Bavaria from 1945 until today, those are soldiers who took away an incredibly positive image of Bavaria and of Germany. And that has been, I think, an important part of the relationship. Today, the relationship is broad and deep. It goes across politics, academia, the people-to-people relationships, business. Business is, of course, incredibly important, with 700 American companies here in Bavaria and more than 800 Bavarian companies who have invested in the United States. So, so that relationship is really very strong and deep, and it really is very special here in Bavaria, very, very unique. Well, as I said, we've got a really strong foundation for the relationship, and I think that moving forward, we will have the same challenges. The challenges are making sure that our NATO alliance is as strong as it possibly can be, making sure that trade is as free and fair and balanced as possible, making sure that we are working together against common challenges. We have a number of challenges coming from China. Yes, of course, we want trade with China, but we do not want China stealing our trade secrets. We also want to make sure that our data is protected. So we're very concerned about Huawei and 5G networks. We're very concerned about Russia. We're very concerned about disinformation. We're very concerned about the geopolitical games that Russia plays. So that is why we're very concerned about Nord Stream 2, and we think that that's a bad idea for Germany, for Europe, and for the world. So we have a number of challenges that are common challenges, and so there are still so many opportunities for us to be working together. And I think that after the election, we're going to have an opportunity, whether we have another Trump administration or if we have a Biden administration, there will be lots of opportunities to continue working together to deepen the transatlantic partnership. Yeah. The pandemic certainly didn't stop our work. We shifted immediately to technology to help keep all of those linkages alive. I know that German and American researchers were continuing to exchange ideas and research and to stay in contact. For sure, on the political level, of course, the engagement continued. We did not miss a day of work. I was working at home, I was working from the consulate, but we were working to support those linkages that we use to advance so many initiatives. So I would say that it was a disappointment that we couldn't have as many in-person meetings. We couldn't do the travel that we had planned to do, but the contact was there. The initiatives are still moving forward, and we're hoping to get back to a more normal situation as soon as possible. Yeah, 2020 has been the year of COVID for us, but it's also been a very important year for the U.S.-Germany bilateral relationship. This year we celebrated 75 years of partnership. 75 years ago is when the Americans arrived here in Germany and in Bavaria. So 75 years ago, the concentration camps were freed. It was really, or liberated. It was really unfortunate that we could not have in-person memorials, for example, here in Bavaria at Dachau or Flossenburg. But we really do need to remember what did happen 75 years ago, and that was really the start for the friendship that we have today. Another milestone in this friendship was 30 years ago, German reunification. We were very proud to support Germany's reunification. Not every country was behind reunification, but we saw Germany as naturally needing to be together, East and West. So we certainly supported reunification. I think everyone is familiar with Ronald Reagan and his famous words of "tear down this wall," Mr. Gorbachev. We were really excited this year, despite Corona, to open a very dynamic light installation in front of the consulate, because we have a piece of the Berlin Wall right in front of our consulate on Königinstrasse. But everyone would pass by this piece of the Berlin Wall and they would never see it. Well, we worked with the Haus der Kunst and the Artists Association there, and we identified artists who put together a fantastic concept to have kind of an Atlantic bridge in front of the consulate that is illuminated and focused on the piece of the Berlin Wall that we've got in front of the consulate. So we inaugurated that on October 3rd. It was really very exciting to see this piece of the Berlin Wall that everyone really just walked by suddenly be illuminated, and it's still visible in front of the consulate for a little while longer, but it was really nice to be able to shine a spotlight on that day 30 years ago that Germany came back together, and we really strongly supported that. So this year, 2020, very important for the bilateral relationship. And I look forward to lots more years and milestones in the future of the United States and Germany working together on our common challenges.